Welcome to another episode of Up To. 9 years ago, Up To started as a live event series showcasing leaders who are as humble as they are successful. The humility piece is extremely important as we identify leaders who can inspire others. We try to focus our interviews on the non-business aspects of their lives. And in doing so, we have found there's a real thirst to explore their hearts and minds in atypical ways. Our host, as always, is Adam Kaufman. And on this episode, we are joined by Dr. Mark Tager.
During the first season of the Up To podcast, I had several companies and entrepreneurs approach me about potential partnerships, but I'm really selective before choosing to do something like that. One choice we did make, happily, is to partner with Vivid Front, a full-service digital marketing and website design agency based in Cleveland that works with both local and national brands. They've built their entire client base on referrals, and they've won a lot of awards, including the 2019 Inc. magazine Top 5,000 Fastest Growing Companies, North Coast's Top Places to Work, and several others. They're known for their talent, they're known for their creativity, they're known for their culture, a firm I liked before we agreed to partner together for the show. Check out vividfront.com, or you can email me and I'll introduce you to their dynamic leader, Andrew Spott. Mark Tager flew to be with us today from lovely San Diego, California. I think it was his first flight since COVID. We're so grateful he's here. He is the author of 10 books and has given more than 1,000 presentations worldwide. Wow. After his undergraduate years at Duke University, Dr. Tager also attended Duke Medical School, currently ranked one of the top 3 medical schools in the U.S. His early career in patient care out west was with Kaiser Permanente, a somewhat traditional start to his medical career. But given his immensely creative mind, which we're going to delve into today, Mark set out on a professional journey that has been anything but traditional. He founded a publishing company, which he successfully sold to a large corporation. He has helped launch medical devices and cosmeceuticals globally, and he is considered a national expert in anti-aging, in integrative and regenerative medicine, and in helping physicians become better at their own practice and presence. He's written about managing stress, personality types, and leading through change. His latest book, titled Feed Your Skin Right, Your Personal Prescription for Radiant Beauty, will be available this fall. All while being a doting husband and the father of 2 super successful and wonderful children. In summary, he is simply one of the most creative and well-rounded human beings I've ever had the pleasure of knowing. He has taught me so much, and he continues to help me strive to be, frankly, the best possible version of myself. Mark Tager, welcome to Up To.
Thank you so much, Adam. It's just great to spend this time with you. We haven't seen each other in so long.
Too long. Well, what have you been up to?
Well, I've been up to doing a lot in the area of personalized nutrition. I'm working with a group called the American Nutrition Association, creating a training program. And I've been working on my book because I'm home, the computer's there. And
you're addicted to writing books.
I like writing. For a few reasons. One, you can do it when it's quiet, no one bothers you. I get up early in the morning. The second thing is, once you've written about something, it's embedded into your brain, the model. You can always pull it out and discuss what you've written intelligently because you've written about it.
You're also not just writing right now, you created a massive garden on your property. I'm impressed.
Yes, that has been the one blessing of COVID, I think. That and my little puppy just stays with me all the time. But I have been enjoying getting out in the garden.
Last night you told me you're now reinventing yourself. And so part of that could be this new you in gardening, which we've never talked about before. But what did you mean by reinventing yourself? You feel like it's time to kind of disrupt your routine a little bit and the industries you play around in. You do so many different things, and we're going to delve into that. But why the reinvention right now?
Well, I've never thought that it had to be just one thing. And I find my joy in taking elements and putting them together in a synergistic fashion. So 1 + 1 + 1 = 10. Mm-hmm. And right now I'm so fascinated with this concept of personalized nutrition, how there's no one else on the planet with the same genes, the same environment, the same diet as you. So we need to begin to prescribe for our patients, and people need to follow a regimen that is right for them, right for their genes, right for their microbiome, right for their culture and behavior.
So what do you think this new reinvention, I mean, it's just a form of your creativity. It'd be easier for you to continue down the path you're already on and to not write the next book and to not probably learn more and share more about this personalized nutrition. Where do you think the creativity in you comes from? Were you extremely creative as a youngster, or is this something professionally you just try to be creative? Because you are one of the most creative human beings I've ever been around.
You know, we're dealt a hand of cards when we're young. And I talk about this in one of the books that I know I've mentioned you in. It's Transforming Stress into Power. And you're dealt this hand of cards, and you have these unique sort of skills and preferences in how you look at the world. And so I was sort of gifted with looking at the world through the creative lens and then evaluating things logically. And so my mind immediately jumps to that creative mind space. And I look to put things together in a unique fashion, a unique way. Look, everything has been said in other books. So there's very little that's really breakthrough new. What's important is how you put it together, and then the recognition that your synthesis, the way you put those words and ideas and phrases together, may be just the way that lights up a unique possibility in the minds and hearts of others.
Let me have us take a step back, some context. So early in your career, you're out of Duke, you're on the West Coast, you're in a medical practice business. Was that a huge decision to leave what I'm calling traditional medicine, or was that like a goal all along? Like, can you, because a lot of people, they hesitate when they're deciding to make a change. So can you walk us through that whole process?
There are turning points in life, moments of epiphany, moments where you just realize that you can't keep going down the same path. And I had that when I was out in Oregon. I did family practice out there. I thought to myself, if I were sick, what would I really want from my doctor? I would want to go and buy an hour of a doctor's time. This is 1977, I'll have you know. And I would want to have classes and workshops and education. So I set up the Institute of Preventive Medicine in Portland,
Oregon.
Back then,
people couldn't buy an hour of a doctor's time.
This was revolution. And we had a team of healers and naturopaths. We had another physician, a marriage and family therapist. We had a nutritionist, and we taught classes there too. We had this big old mansion that we rented, and I taught Monday night yoga. Now the yoga was really for me because I needed the reinforcement, the remembrance. But it was so wonderful to be able to have a patient, to sit with them for an hour, to go over their data, their information, send them into the cooking class, send them into the yoga class, have them work with a marriage and family therapist.
So a lot of that's more common now than it was in 77.
Yes,
so you were kind of on the cutting edge.
Yeah,
then.
And that was my first book was called Whole Person Healthcare. And I wrote that. I spent a year going around the Pacific Northwest looking at quote-unquote alternative, but really we talk about it now as complementary healing techniques. And it was just fascinating, the many approaches we have. You know, the perspective you now hold is just one of so many you could hold. And in medicine, we go down this path, this dogmatic path. And there's one study that's showed that it takes 17 years sometimes for a new idea to make it into clinical practice. So
it's a long process.
It's a long process,
to say the least. Was it a long process for you to then take another leap, another reinvention? You spoke passionately about this complementary medicine scenario you created, but then you totally left practicing medicine,
right?
And you went into the business of medicine and marketing medical things. Devices, programs.
I
was that
established my publishing and training company with the sense that what I realized early on was that I was a better communicator one-to-many than one-to-one. And then if you recognize that that's a gift, I mean, that is a gift. Then you start honing those skills. So you hone the skills of organizing messages. You hone the skill of being able to present messages. You hone the skill of being able to pull and draw from people the kind of information, the kind of...
Yeah, I like drawing information from people. That's why I sit here and listen.
And you, Adam, you are a master. So
That's my secret. I just give people... I interrupted you, but my secret is I just give people room to talk, and people think I'm a great listener, but I just keep my mouth shut. I'll do that right now, ironically. Our producer's laughing over here.
So I've got a pretty extensive training background also.
But I want to really hone in on the decision to leave that. I know you're qualified and good at that, but people often, they freeze when they have this new opportunity, this Y in the road, or maybe it's like a God-given inclination to jump, or it's more of a trait that they're conservative and they don't want to take a chance. But you leapt. You leaped.
Yeah, I've always been a bit of a risk taker, and I think what sustains me in that is this knowledge and sense that, I look at life as having a big basket. I go to the garden and I start picking my greens.
Your own garden.
Well, if you think about that as your life pursuit, what you do is you acquire and cut, clip, transferable skills. So you learn the skill of presentation here. You learn the skill of writing. You learn the skill of video production, video editing. You learn the skill of training exercises. And all of these skills, when they mount up, they give you confidence that you could make the next leap because you've got a basket full of goodies.
More
that will
tools in the
sustain
toolbox.
you.
I kind of describe it that way.
Exactly.
You don't use every tool in every scenario, but the more tools you have,
the
better
greater
you
you're
can
confident.
be.
You have more confidence. And
Right.
you look at it's confidence, and then it's first competence, and then confidence and commitment. So, at first you may not have the greatest competence, but you learn that and grow with that over time. I mean, you are a better interviewer today than you were 15 years ago when we first met.
Thank you. Still improving for sure. But you just brought up like learning a new skill. And I remember years ago, you told my wife and I both that you felt like you didn't have a lot of empathy. And one of your books is about personality profiles. And I actually brought it today because it's probably my favorite of your books, Transforming Stress into Power. I love this book.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I believe it, but you said that you felt about yourself that you lacked empathy. So you decided you had to work on that. So whether or not it's empathy for someone else, how can people really work on a personality trait?
My wife has been teaching me empathy for 35 years now.
And humility, right?
Absolutely. So I mentioned that we were dealt a hand of cards. Now, you have 2 children, I have 2 children. And which would you say is the case? Wait, 3 children, actually. Excuse me. You have 3 children. Which would you say is the case? Would you say, oh, my kids are all so much alike. I have to treat them the same way. What stresses one stresses all the others. Or would you say, your kids, wait a minute, why are they so different? Why are they so unique? So these early traits, preferences I call them, are hardwired into us by about age 5. When you look at your kid about age 5, you know what you got. And you know that you have to communicate with them in a certain way. What stresses one doesn't stress the other. So you've got your gifts. You've got your innate energies. We've got a profile called the power source profile. And then you've also got to work on your weaknesses, your weak energies.
I'm going to interrupt there. You just said it so quickly. We have a profile. You created your own personality profile system.
Yes.
That's in and of itself a massive conversation path.
It's been translated in a number of languages. And what it is
so it's not DISC. It's different from Enneagram.
Yes, it's called the power source profile. And,
Yeah.
and the emphasis here is that, again, I'm a clinician at heart. And when I see 2 patients who have the same stressors, why is it that one falls apart and the other seems to grow and thrive on that challenge? So there are unique personality traits that are hardwired into us, these profiles, that determine why something stresses us. So what stresses a person who's very empathetic doesn't really stress, who my son, for example, doesn't stress my daughter, who's highly logical and analytical. And we created the profile based upon that.
So for yourself, you discovered that you felt you lacked empathy. So then maybe there's practices you could try to put into place to increase your own empathy?
The first thing I realized in business was I had to hire someone who was both grounded and empathetic to be my personal...
You had to hire a counterpart.
A counterpart.
Yeah.
Because I would be in a meeting sometimes and I wouldn't know how my words and thoughts were affecting the feelings of others. It's easy to...
I'm just recalling, and Todd here will laugh, but I just asked you before we started, do you remember this time when blah, blah, blah? And you're like, no. And that like hurt my feelings.
Because I was in another space there thinking about something else.
But that was lacking of empathy.
That was. I should have said...
You need to work on it some more.
I should. So people who are highly logical, and I am a highly logical kind of individual, to learn empathy, we do it a different way. What comes so naturally for people who are highly empathetic, and it's not just a male-female thing.
Sure.
My son is highly empathetic. My daughter isn't. So we do it a different way. We sort of try to step back and say, okay, what is it that I think she or he is feeling? And then we make an attempt. We say, so you said you're feeling hurt? Now, you get points for that. And you may not be right, but you get points. And they say, no, it wasn't that I was hurt. I was really angry. Oh, great, we get it. So we come to empathy in a different kind of way. It's not the first step. It's the second step. We have to approach it more logically.
Makes sense. I've also been very fond of how you focused on resilience, another character trait over the years. You've done it in books, in speeches, just in our conversations. And in my world of venture capital, resilience, I think, is the number one attribute of an early stage entrepreneur, because she or he has to like roll with the punches or respond to market conditions, deal with a lot of no's, and then come back from that. So why do you think resilience is so important? And it isn't talked about as much as some of the other kind of character traits, but you focused on resilience early on.
So much of our growth comes in those moments where we quote unquote fail, where we quote unquote have the big problem. And the ability to A, learn from that, and B, adapt and look at that as an opportunity. I mean, what I remember most are the things in my life where I've not been successful. And that's been the impetus to improve, to impetus to grow. You know, in medicine, what happens is a lot of the teaching is around the moment where you didn't get the right diagnosis and you didn't order the right test. And you really learn and grow from that. So in that process, we know we're never perfect, but we do the best we can to move along. And I really... People who are resilient have faith in themselves and have faith in a larger power. They tend to be optimists. They tend to be able to to close the book. Now, for example, in medical school and training, there's always more to learn. There's always more to do. So at some point, you've got to close the book and let things go. This process of letting go is a tough one for a lot of people. But you've got that, you learn from it, and so let it go. And anything that you can do to have a letting go practice, I mean, whether it's meditation or going out running or working out, or prayer, all of that is so important to the foundation for resilience.
You mentioned some of your clearest memories are failures of yours. Could you share an example of that and maybe what you learned from that or how you reacted to that? I call this like navigating curves in the road. I often ask people, how do you navigate curves in the road?
I've got such a funny story to tell you. And so I had my small little company called Great Performance, and we'd gotten this deal with a cruise ship line, and we had to create a brochure. And I had my graphic designer, who is a graphic designer. They don't see words as words, they see words as images. And she was going through a very difficult period of time. She was getting divorced from her husband. She was angry. And we printed up 25,000 beautiful glossy brochures. And I checked everything, but I didn't check the last thing, which was, she said, look, I just want to put a little sticker on the front, a fake sticker, and say, if you like this offer, tear this off. Well, tear this off. Unfortunately, she left the T off of tear this off. So it was tear his off. And now, I don't know where that came from. I knew she was angry at her husband. But that
did they get distributed?
Yeah, no, it got caught.
Oh,
but
good.
it was an enormous, for me at that time in a small company. I had to redo the whole thing. It was enormous.
How did you react, or how did you deal with that? If you could honestly look backwards.
I was upset.
Mm-hmm.
I was upset because it was a big blow at that time, a lot of money, a lot of,
Yeah.
it would have been such an embarrassment had it gone out.
Right.
So it was caught early, but it just did teach me to check, double check, recheck. I want to be the last set of eyes on anything that's important.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not my nature. I don't like to do that, very grounding detail. This is why when in writing, I always have people print things out. And the last copy they read should be a printed copy, because you mark it up, you can see it better. Our eyes tend to just sort of go very quickly over that computer screen. There's something really nice and grounded and tangible. And for editing, print it out, go to a different space. Don't sit at your desk, go someplace else, a brand new, fresh environment, and read over your work.
You know what somebody taught me early on? Because, reading your own work, sometimes you mentally finish a sentence, and that's not great. So I actually read sentences in the reverse order. Not back of the sentence to front, but like last sentence of the paragraph first. It kind of breaks up the thought.
Interesting.
I've caught a lot of my mistakes over the years. So just another trick.
This whole concept of messaging and how do we get our messages across? And so, one of my favorite books and the training that I do is built on Enhance Your Presence, which is a book I did with Robert John Hughes. And, we train a lot of CEOs and healthcare professionals to be better communicators. And, it is a skill. It is a skill you can learn. We've taken people who have great fear and anxiety and hate the way they look on camera, for
That's good. It's a learned skill, because it's like one of the biggest fears of people is to speak in front of others, right?
Yeah. So there was a mantra that I was taught years ago. 4 sayings that I say to myself before I do any performance. And here they go. I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad you're here. I know what I know, and I care about you. And I've said this to myself 1,000 times.
All that's true today.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm here. Hey, it's great to be with my good buddy. I haven't seen you in so long. It's wonderful. So I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad you're here. Now, this is the interesting thing. I know what I know. And for many of us, this is the imposter syndrome.
Definitely.
I've gotten up and talked in medical conferences where people know so much more. They spent their whole life researching something that I'm glossing
And you're
over.
like feeling like a fraud. What am I doing here?
And then you turn that around and you say, my synthesis, the way I put something together, might just light up that possibility in the minds and hearts of others. And I care about you. So I'm not going to bore you. We're going to move on.
Going to be punctual.
Punctual.
I know you care a lot about that.
Absolutely. And if I'm doing a live workshop, if I see 3 yawns, we get the whole group up and we do an interactive exercise.
Yeah, it's good. I want to switch gears a little bit, Mark. We, over the years, have talked about so many different topics that you are identifying trends before I've heard about them or before they're genuine, like accepted practices or companies or ideas in the marketplace. When we first met, we were at a corporate retreat in Mexico, and a board member brought you as a facilitator of this session. And it's a really high-powered group of board members, and in that moment, you were a stranger to me, and so I was kind of like checking you out, see what this guy, Mark, brings to the table. And you started telling us about this platform that kids were using at the top schools, and it was called Facebook. And I hadn't heard of that at the time. You're laughing right now because you didn't know I was going to bring this up.
Yeah.
But that was in 2006. And so I looked up today, preparing for this session, Facebook was only founded in 2004. So like very early, you're like saying, oh yeah, my son's at Duke and my daughter's at USC and they're talking about this thing. Like that's just one example, but how do you find these cutting edge, like what do you read or who do you talk to identify stem cells before it's popular or Facebook before I know about it?
So
it's a real gift of yours.
I look at myself as being the Adam Kaufman of healthcare.
Oh my gosh.
So what I do is
Lord help you. Todd, you're not allowed to laugh.
I ask a lot of questions to a lot of people a lot smarter than I am. And I basically listen. So I do a lot of video production, for example, and training courses. And in that process, I'm really privileged. I get to talk to some of the world's smartest scientists. And
so you seek out these knowledge creators.
Yes. Yeah, and I also run some conferences and participate in conferences. So I'm exposed to groups that really have some great ideas. And San Diego is really a mecca for gene
innovation
sequencing and microbiome and incubation of cool companies.
For sure.
So it's just trying to stay vital and alive and connected. You know, my doctor at Scripps, they make you retire at age 70, and he'd been my doctor for 25 years. And I asked him, I said, what's it going to be like when you retire? He said, Mark, the biggest challenge for me is to stay relevant. So you want to stay relevant, engaged, creative, for me creative, and pliable. I mean, this concept of rigidity and a fixed approach to things, it just doesn't work well in environments that are changing so rapidly.
I'm grateful that Calfee, Halter, and Griswold has once again agreed to partner with us. With offices in Ohio and Washington, D.C., this full-service national law firm focuses on all aspects of business and the law, including corporate and finance, intellectual property, and government relations. Let me be clear. I actually approach companies with whom I would like to partner. We just don't accept marketing dollars from anyone. I have been referring my CEO and entrepreneur friends to Calfee for years. I really believe in the firm. One of their notable practice areas is in mergers and acquisitions. And recently, for instance, I introduced a successful entrepreneur in the Midwest to Calfee when he told me that a European-based conglomerate wanted to buy his business. Calfee works with large corporations as well as privately held companies throughout the U.S. and Canada and in Europe and Asia too. So whether it's selling your own business or the more routine needs of creating your first will or anything in between, this firm can really do it all in terms of legal needs. Once again, the firm is Calfee, Halter, and Griswold, and you can find them at calfee.com or on the Up2 Foundation website. So you told me about Facebook early on. You were writing a book and working with a company in stem cell work long before it was commonly talked about. What are some new trends now, or some, maybe not trends yet, but some interesting aspects of medicine or beyond medicine that are captivating your attention right now?
Yeah, I think...
and hopefully hair loss prevention is one of the answers.
Well, there are some answers to hair loss prevention, but we got for us, it's too late.
Yeah.
But there are actually some nutraceuticals, some good clinical
What are you most excited about, nutraceuticals?
Well, I'm excited about personalized nutrition. I'm excited about helping us understand the science and the application of it.
Okay.
So, as you know, clinically, I've got two interests. One is integrative medicine. The other is aesthetics. So I was the chief marketing officer founding the Fraxel laser. And I had spent about 12 years in the aesthetic industry.
And that's something plastic surgeons use?
Dermatologists, plastic surgeons,
okay.
Cosmetic doctors. It's a great device for keeping your skin youthful, and sort of revolutionized the way we approach treating the skin for skin rejuvenation. So I'm always excited to put 1 + 1 + 1 together and make it 10. So I just keep seeking things out. And here's the other thing. I ask people, we all get our ideas from out of the blue, right? You get your ideas from out of the blue.
Definitely.
Okay.
I usually get the ideas when I'm in your town, like jogging, and that's my most
Thank you.
creative times.
So I'm giving a talk at in Texas, the university there, medical center. I have 1,000 people stand up and say, look, when I tell you where you get your great ideas from, please sit down. You're exercising, you're jogging, you're going to and from school, to and from work. You are showering, shaving, you're in the bathroom in the morning, or right before you go to sleep, or right when you wake up.
Usually it's not at your desk working.
There was one person left standing out of 1,000 people. I said, well, where do you get your ideas? She said, work.
That's very unusual. It's got to be.
Very unusual.
Yeah.
Your brain needs that downtime to process. And that's why brainstorming is a very brain unfriendly activity as is practiced mostly today.
Oh, that's interesting because you're forced to think.
Get your butts in here. It's 9 o'clock. We're going to sit around. We're going to brainstorm. And then I just don't think that's when people have their best ideas. The best ideas come when you data dump, and then you allow time for ideas to percolate. And then you bring people back to sort of, you've thought about it, you ruminated on it, you were out running, this idea came to you, you were shaving this morning.
One of my favorite entrepreneurs, Charu Ramanathan, I don't know if you met her, but she's been on the podcast and she's been at our Up To events, but she and her co-founder, they take walks together. And I think being in nature, more so during COVID, that's when they have their best brainstorming.
Going back to our personality concept, when you have certain individuals with certain personality, energy types, when they're in situations in stress and change, they need different things from leaders. So, for example, when you've got a highly creative person who could be relationship oriented, who they awfulize, their creativity runs amok.
Awfulize, it's funny.
And what you do with them is you take them out and you walk and talk. Now, why do you walk and talk? Because the simple act of putting one foot in front of the other is a grounding activity. Now, look, when you exercise, it's good for your heart, it's good for your vascular system, et cetera, for your muscles, but it's also really a form of grounding. This morning you were on the treadmill. You were just putting one foot in front of the other foot, and it grounds you for your day. So people in times of stress and change need different things from you. Highly empathetic people need you. That's when you need the empathy.
So this goes back to the personality profiling importance. Is if you're the leader of a small team or a big corporation, the more you know about your internal customers, your coworkers, and how they need your leadership to be delivered, the better.
So you need to have the flexibility in your leadership style to speak in a language that is valid and true for the recipient, not for you.
Right.
So you're delivering these messages so they will be well received by the other person and going through their filters of what's important to them. A grounding person is chaos. Joan, today there's just one thing you've got to get done, just one thing. Joan goes, oh, just one thing? I love you, Dr. Tager. You're the best boss I've ever had. You've got a highly creative person. Walk and talk. We're going to need your creativity to come up with solutions. Logic people. Yeah, I know this doesn't make sense to you right now. Because logic people, this doesn't make
different
sense.
Messaging for the motivations.
Exactly.
I remember when I was responsible for a sales team, and the 10 salesmen had 10 different personalities. Now, I didn't know about your personality profile system, but I knew one of the fellows I needed to really stroke his ego to get him to sell more. Another, I had to just stay away, let him do his thing. Another person, you kind of hold their hand along the way. So that's kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's trying to give the other person what they need to help them move forward. And that has to do with a flexible leadership style.
I mentioned your ability to identify trends. You're being modest and humble, that you just like to talk to smart people and get exposed to things. But then still, you have to have the talent to know, well, what is actually going to have some staying power? What is the new trend going to be? That must you're curating that. So I have another example. Before COVID, you told me you were starting this company that you're going to teach people how to present better, and specifically doctors, and how they're going to give speeches better and market their own practices better. And that was before COVID. So once again, you were like perfectly positioned, because now all these doctors for the past year and a half are saying, I got to do marketing. I got to deal with patients. I'm horrible on camera. I mean, a brilliant... It's sad. It's like a silver lining of the COVID year and a half, but you were perfectly positioned.
So...
Yet again.
Thank you. Two statements. The first is something I've been saying for 10 years. The best way to grow your business is to enhance your presence. Okay? And now the corollary comes. And in today's world, the best way to enhance your presence is through video. So you have moved the podcast to video. Why is that? Because it allows people to project authenticity, to tell their stories, for the viewer to relate. Now, the problem you have is that so many people hate the way they look on camera.
Pretty much everybody, including myself. I mean, it's just human nature.
It's human nature. All you can see are your flaws and problems. But if you realize that you are just there to deliver that message, to be as authentic and real as possible, that's what comes across. And that's what's important. So we teach people that. We teach them to organize their message, to hook the reader's attention.
And you've been doing a ton of that now with video only, not even meeting with the people in person.
Exactly.
Do you think that'll continue, or will it be a return to more in-person training?
Well, it's going to be. It will
work?
be hybrid. I think come 2022, I work with a lot of conferences, and we will see a rebound of people wanting to press the flesh.
For sure.
The problem with Zoom and the problem with all these conferences is the presenter just doesn't get that feedback. You know, you don't see that, sense that audience. And
yeah, if everyone's on mute especially, and let alone if they don't
get
show
the
their
hugs
face.
and you don't get the people coming up to you afterwards.
Right.
So it really does dilute the experience. And you're also down to two senses. You're down to what you see, what people see, and what they hear.
Mm-hmm.
And so it becomes so important to work on your voice as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to learn to project caring.
We've mentioned these trends.
Excitement.
Sorry, Mark, that I've mentioned the stem cells, Facebook, your focus on presence and presenting via video. But you also have to decide to not pursue things. So one of the things you taught me years ago is to do multiple things at once rather than just working for one company. We also are stimulated by opportunities that we maybe pass on. So like, can you talk a little bit about how you decide what you're going to pursue, what opportunity you're going to say no thank you to, and have you maybe learned from saying yes too many times?
The first point is I've got to have passion for whatever it is that we're doing. And I've got to know that this project can move the needle. And if it can't be a big global success, can it light up possibilities in the minds and hearts of others? Because I think the ability to create and light up possibility is so important. Now, after I sort of filter that out, then I'm down to my 3 Fs.
Okay, so you do have like a personal plan, the 3 Fs. Some do, some don't. So I like that. Keep going. Yeah, 3 Fs.
Fit, fun, finances, in that order.
Is it a good fit for your skills?
Fit for my skill set?
Yeah.
Will I be able to make a difference? Will I be able to contribute? Okay, really important. Fun. Are these people, this team, this group, are they going to be fun to work with?
Coming to do the podcast, will that be fun? Yes, it will.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the last thing is really the finances. Now, I realize that people economically may need to flip that around. These, for some people, can be desperate times. And they've got to do stuff.
Take the business, right?
Get the business. You're not passionate about it, but it will help move you to something that maybe you will be passionate about. The problem is you just don't want to get stuck in a place where you're not passionate about the work that you do. That's what I find anyway. Passion is important. And then fit, fun, finances.
Does that change over time? Like you said, maybe early on when somebody's really hustling just to take the business and get some revenue, maybe after some success over the years or decades, you can move fun up the kind of priority measurement or...
I think it depends on individual circumstance
right.
for sure. But for me, having a group of really great people to work with, that takes so much of the load off. Younger people today, my son's a millennial, and they're trained to work in groups, and that's what they miss the most in a lot of ways. I mean, they're still doing it, obviously, in meetings and Zooms, but there's less walk down the hall and what do you think about this?
Mm-hmm.
Let's get Jill in here and let's kick this idea around a little bit. And
your son's a Harvard Law School grad. I hope he doesn't mind me saying that. You're being modest. I mean, you've raised two very successful kids. Let's talk about that a little bit, actually, since you brought it up, your son in this instance. Do you think that from a parenting standpoint, a child's success is more like nature or nurture? Like when you look at your two wonderful children, who I've been fortunate enough to get to know, I mean, they're really doing well in their various pursuits of life. Is that all God-given, or can you take some credit for that?
I'll give the credit to my wife, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
To Carol.
Good answer.
In case she listens to this.
Right.
Honey, hi, honey.
Right.
We sort of knew who they were when they were young. And you got to see how they process information and how they bring information into their world. My daughter is a grounded, logic individual. She likes to do one thing at a time. She knew from an early age, oh, that's Daddy's towel. And my son is highly creative, and he's like this. His next idea, and highly relationship oriented. Now, the secret there is twofold. One is try to help them get into a field that recognizes and builds on their strong energies.
Mm-hmm.
That's only part of the equation.
Strong energies. I like that phrase, yeah.
And the other thing is that recognize that they've got to compensate for their weaker energies, because life's a setup. You just can't go through life with just being a creative person.
We can't only do the things we're good at. That's why it's called work. These aren't hobbies.
Yeah, and we need other people at work, but in life we need to be fully developed. So we need to be able to access these different energies for different problems. So you need to be able to think logically. You need to be able to empathize. You need to be able to come up with creative ideas. And then you need to test and sort those ideas logically and analytically, and then have the grounding power, the state power. Look, everybody in LA wants to write a book or be in a movie, but there's real work that you've got to do. You've got to grounding. Everyone's got a book in them.
So relate that back to parenting, though. So
parenting is
you really have successful kids,
you recognize who they are, and you kind of sort of shape them in that direction, and then you help them develop their weaker energies. So, for example, my son early on developed an amazing ability to write. We got him a Mavis Bacon typing thing, and one day, Saturday morning, he's like 7. Dad, I wrote this story.
He was 7?
He's 7. He gives me this story that he'd written on his Macintosh computer. And I said, oh, that's a really nice story. It's 5 pages long. He'd printed it out.
7 years old.
And I said, that's a nice story. You copied that from Star Wars. He said, no, it's my story. And it was like, whoa. I mean, he has a creative, fertile mind. So we sent him to the Duke Young Writers
So you hit
program.
The accelerator on that creativity in writing.
Exactly. But because he's highly creative, he needed the grounding. So actually his pediatrician suggested, James, you ought to take up a sport. What's the sport you like, you'll be willing to do? He said, oh, I like to swim. So he did swimming and water polo.
Okay.
And, my daughter was always the social one. She was always the one who solved everybody's problems. So when
So ironically, lots of empathy, unlike her father.
Well, no, James, the ironic thing is James has the empathy, my son.
But she's the problem solver.
She's the problem solver because she learned the skill of, she's very observant and learned the skill of solving problems.
Okay.
So she's going to give you tough love. So everybody, she was Mama Marissa. Anybody got in trouble with their parents, anybody needed a ride.
So it's kind of like you do some tough love sometimes, and that's okay. I remember one time I thought I was going to write a book, and I proudly,
I
had this outline that I went over with you on the phone, and man, I was so excited. And at the end, you're like, Adam, who's going to want to read that? It's just a story about you. It was like so humbling. And you're allowed to laugh, Todd. It's but that was appropriate, tough love.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do actually remember
gosh.
that. I remember we did work a little bit on a book, and
Yeah.
and this is the nature of writing and following through. If I commit to a project, I'm going to do it. In fact, I put it out there to the universe. So the universe,
it's like an accountability.
Do it, and,
yeah.
and it's pure accountability.
Mm-hmm.
There's really something to that. If you publicly proclaim something, then you've got to really work. Now, creative people need a deadline. Without a deadline, without a timeline, a creative person will just have more ideas.
That's true. I actually like when I would have a race date on a calendar. So I'm going to run a 10K, or a couple times I've run marathons in my life. It's, that day's coming. You can't like cram at the last minute for it. So you got to do things along the way to achieve whatever the goal is on that deadline.
Yeah, and it's that way with creative projects. I mean, without a timeline.
Like a book. Like you have no book police.
No.
You just got to put your own policing into effect. And
my book could come out in 2022, 2023.
So you have a new book coming out. Actually, let's wrap up with that. It's about, tell us what it's about.
Feed your skin right.
Okay. So it's for everybody, not just for physicians.
This is for everyone. This is a consumer book. I alternate. I write for consumers, then I write for professionals in the healthcare space. But this is really my distillation coming from the integrative field, the aesthetic field, and the personalized nutrition field, that no one else has skin like you. Your skin is unique. So what are we going to do? Now, okay, look, we all need sunblock. Maybe a retinoid. Everything else we smear on our face basically is a moisturizer for protection and hydration. Beyond that, I mean, if you stop and think about it, right now, as you sit here, 1/8 of your blood flow is going through your skin. That means whatever
1/8 of my blood flow is going through my skin.
Going through your skin. So as you sit here, the nutrients that you have taken in, the vitamins, the minerals, the nutrients that are being created by the bacteria in your gut, the neurotransmitters that are being created in your gut are going into your bloodstream, affecting your skin. So you want to build skin health and beauty from the inside out, in addition to the outside in. So this concept, I think, is one that really resonates with a lot of people right now, because if you think, if you look at Amazon, what drives product sales on Amazon? There's pain, there's fear, and there's vanity. And, we're in physical pain and we want relief. We're afraid that we're going to get a condition, or we want to look and feel our best. And the studies that I've seen, it's not just older people. This is getting younger and younger and younger.
Caring about their
their
health.
skin health, their physical fitness, how they look. So we're seeing this now. And I think this is an area in which I can make a contribution, because I've been studying this for a long time. And here's the challenge.
It fit your fit and fun and finance model, hopefully. Well, we'll figure out the finance model when we start selling the book.
There you go.
Right.
And I think I have a contribution to make in this area.
Yeah, I think you do too.
Yeah.
And then after that, I'm sure you got another book plan already. I mean, you're unbelievable with your writing.
I do one every 3 years, basically. And a lot of ways, some people just write their one book and keep riding that one horse. And for me, I find such joy in the process of creation that after I've written the book and given 100 talks on it, it's like, okay, let's do another one. And I start looking for, where can I pull ideas from to begin to synthesize it? And then I test it out. I test a lot of these ideas.
How do you test it? Like just a posting on LinkedIn or something?
I will do some of that.
A comment in a
social
speech.
media.
Yeah, see what resonates with people.
Yeah, I will in a speech or a talk, give a little segue into something and see what resonates.
For people who feel like, Mark, they have a book in them or a newsletter or any kind of content, like what's the best practice for sitting down and doing the work and writing? I remember one time I had this ambitious plan to come out and start my book, and I was doing it at your house in your gorgeous backyard, and I was going to spend 4 days. But I didn't tell the world that I was off writing. So like the regular work continued, and I just reacted to everyone else's emails, and I got nowhere.
Yeah.
So that was not a good discipline for writing and getting ahead. So is there some tricks of the trade 11 books later that you've learned?
Yeah, I think there's a few. One is to set a time and a place and have it be sacrosanct.
So I did time and place, but I didn't make it.
Yeah, you've got to just block that off and just, I do the early morning when no one can disturb me. If I'm writing, I'll get up at 4:30, 4 o'clock, and I'll spend those first, after a couple of cups of coffee, I'll spend those first hours writing. The other thing is that I teach people to just diarrhea. I use the phrase, just get the words out. Don't think that you've got to have the outline of the book rigidly done, everything outlined. Just start writing.
Just start writing ideas,
just start
typing
writing
ideas.
When the ideas come to you, or you can dictate. There are some people who can dictate very well. There are physicians, for example, who give patients instructions all day long, and they could dictate a lot of that. I can't. I'm a fast typist. I like to see the words appear, and so I can type as fast as I can speak. So there's that, and then shape your synthesis up. Walk on the beach. Let the ideas percolate. Start finding little snippets. And just, accumulate the little snippets.
So throughout the day, you might have an additional idea, even though your writing time is over, but you're out doing something else. You're in your car or talking to somebody, and then you chronicle that idea somewhere.
I use Evernote. Which
I like Evernote. Maybe you're the one who told me to get that.
It has been just a godsend for me. I clip things, I sort things.
I think it's like $5 a month or something.
It's cheap. It's cheap. For the book Feed Your Skin Right, I have a little file that everything is tagged FYSR. So, if I can just go into Evernote, I can go FYSR and the microbiome.
And do you have a date for policing your own conclusion of when this book's going to be done?
Yeah, it'll be out October 1st.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not
I'm about 40,000 words into it, which is about 2/3. But the process I also have to do is to get it reviewed. So I'm fortunate that I know some of the best clinicians in the world, the best researchers. So I will subject my thesis to them, and hopefully they'll be kind and gentle. The problem is, where do you stop? What's in the book? What's out of the book? How do you take a complex subject like the microbiome or genomics or epigenetics and sort of bring that down to actionable steps that a person can take to become healthier or better, have better skin. So that is always the challenge of taking complex subjects and bringing them down. I like to think that that's one of my skill sets that I've really developed, because I'm not as smart as I used to be. There are,
that's debatable. I think learning is cumulative.
We have neuroplasticity, yes, but I used to hold on to a lot more information just in my brain. But the point is that the ability to make the complicated simple and digestible. I think that's something that a skill that you can hone in life, and it's important.
Well, speaking of complexities and challenging ways to begin a book with so much potential information, it's also so challenging to cover so many topics in a short period of time that just goes so fast. So, Mark, I've loved our time together today. Thank you so much for doing this. And you have so many life lessons for others to learn. I hope they learn a little bit, like a small percentage of what I've learned from you. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Adam. This has been great.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Up To podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe via your podcast platform of choice. To receive our newsletter, suggest speakers, and give your candid feedback, please email Adam directly at adam@uptofoundation.org. We would love to hear from you. The Up To podcast is produced by the BL Media Group, right outside of the nation's capital in Washington, D.C. See you next time.